One of the features in CC that makes the biggest difference to me is the way that it relinks clips. Not a sexy feature, but it's incredibly useful. I do move my projects around a lot. I work on a laptop and a desktop. Used to spend ages when I'd moved it and the drive letters changed or some other rubbish, relinking clips. Now it's a lot easier. So I'm going to open up my demo project and immediately it's going to say, oh, some things are missing. Why are some things missing? Well, what I did before I started the project was I came into the folder where I keep my demonstration footage and I changed the name. So now it doesn't know where all that stuff is. And it pops up this dialog box, which is just a way of relinking footage. And it said, oh, this stuff is missing. Where is it? Well, the options that I've got here are obviously to relink it, and that's what all this stuff down here is about. Or I can choose to say offline either certain clips or all the clips. So let's talk about those two first. If you choose to offline a clip, then you're telling it you don't know where it is. You'll go into Premiere and you'll have a big red thing saying this clip is missing. You can choose to offline just a particular clip because you know you're looking at that and you know you've lost it completely, so forget it, let's just ignore that one. Or you can offline everything and then get into Premiere and sort out the missing clips later on. I'll talk about sorting them out once I'm in Premiere later. The difference between offlining and cancelling is if you cancel at this point, you'll get into Premiere and you'll have a bunch of clips that say they're offline, which is exactly the same as happen if you click on the offline button. But the major difference is, if you click on offline, you're telling Premiere, yeah, this clip is missing, just live with the fact that it's offline. Next time you go into Premiere, it won't ask you to find them. If you click cancel, then what happens is you'll get into Premiere and next time you open the project tab, it'll say, oh, these clips are offline. It'll bring up this dialog box. So that's the difference between the two. Cancelling will mean this dialog box will come up again. Clicking offline means this dialog box won't come up again. So if I just click offline here, it's going to ignore that first clip and go on to the next one. If I clicked offline all, it would ignore all of them. I didn't really want to offline those clips. I really want to locate them. It's ignored the first one now. I'll have to sort that out later on. It's got the second one selected. And I need to tell Premiere where it is, so I'm going to click on the word locate. It then comes up with a standard file thing. I've now got to tell it where those clips are. Well, I know where they used to be because it tells me up here. They used to be on the E drive, DVC demo footage, blah, blah, blah. I know where they are. They're in the E drive and a folder called DVC demo footage changed because that's what I did. So I go to the E drive, demo footage changed, and inside of that, they were in a folder called basics. So let's look for a folder called basics. And I have another folder called Brighton HDV, so let's go for that one. And oh, there we are. It's now found that folder, which is full of clips. They're HDV clips, so it needs to do a bit of jiggery pokery down here to see them properly, which is what Premiere always does with compressed clips, which is why it started flashing. But now it's shut up. Now what I want to do is I want to make sure that I link that to the correct clip in here. Well, it's pretty obvious. It's the top one. It says Brighton 37. But if I wasn't entirely sure, one of my favourite things is this little tick box which says display exact name matches only. Tick on that and it only shows you clips with exactly the same name, which is great. If you've got a folder with loads and loads of clips, it's quite hard to find the one you actually want. Well, that will just show you the ones that match. You can click on it and say OK and it'll link it. So let me do that. Click on it, OK, and oh, what's happening now? It's doing a bit more stuff. Because what this does, which is very, very clever, is that it'll find that one clip. That clip used to be in a folder called DVC demo footage. Let's see if all the others are in the same kind of relative path. Because I had a whole bunch of different clips in here. They were all on subfolders of that DVC demo footage folder. And what it's done is because it found out where one of them was, it could work out where all the rest were. It's gone ahead and linked everything up, with the exception of that one clip that I told it to be offline. And that's one of the things I love about it. It's just so much easier to relink clips than it used to be. If they were in different folders, maybe it would link up to a particular folder, but it wouldn't link up to all the other folders, and I'd have to go through and manually link a lot of them up. This just, bang, does it. But it's even more than that. There was a clip which I didn't link up, which is this one here, called Adobe HDV, if you remember. So I really need to sort that out. If I didn't know where that was, then I could go to the main root of my project folder and in the search box type offline. Now when you're in icon mode like this, you're only sitting at that level, so it's not showing me all the clips which are actually offline. But if I click down here and go into the text or list view, it will show what's in those folders and what's in the subfolders. So for what I'm trying to do here, I need to be in list view. I've typed in the word offline, and then it's gone through the list of all the stuff in here, and it's brought up the clips which are offline, which in this case is that one. Now I knew where it was, but if I didn't, that's the easiest way of finding it. Stick it into list view, type the first few letters of the word offline, and it will show you all the offline clips. Now I want to link that clip up. Very simple. Select it in the bin, right click and say link media. Brings up that same dialog box we had a minute ago, and now I can tell it where that clip is. So I've got to find it. So I could do the same as I did before, click on locate, and then go rummaging through these things and find the exact folder. But instead of me looking for it manually, I'm just going to click on the E drive, which is where I think it is, and click search. Now I've got loads of, this is a 2 terabyte drive full of lots of stuff, so it's going to take me a little bit of time to search through it. If, for example, I knew it was in a subdirectory of DVC demo footage, it would have been quicker just to click on that and then search. When you click search, it searches from wherever you are and then through all the subfolders. So in my case, it would have been a lot easier to click on that and then click search, and it would have found it quicker because it would have less to look through. But that's great. It's gone through, it's found it, it's looked for something with that exact name. Select, OK, and that clip is now linked up. My search box, which has still got the word offline in there, hasn't come up with anything because there's nothing offline. Let me just clear the search box so I can see other clips, because now of course you go into subfolders and there aren't anything in there. So click on the little X and clear the search box. But there's even more than that. It's cleverer than that. For example, take this particular clip of the timeline of a bit of Brighton Beach. I'm going to bring that up in Windows Explorer. So the easiest way is right click and say reveal in Explorer. And I'm going to rename it to Beach. The way every editing program works is that the stuff in the project just refers to clips on the hard drive. So if you go around changing them and moving them and renaming them, it's going to fluff up the clip on the timeline. I've renamed that, so when I go back into Premiere, it shouldn't be able to find it. Let's see what happens. Yep, it couldn't find it. It doesn't know what that clip is called, so it's immediately put it offline. And up comes this red dialog box. I've seen people on the forums say, my project's taken to a bunch of clips with a lot of gibberish written all over it. This is media offline, as in the media's moved, in lots of different languages. That's all it is. If you get that, a clip's move, or you've lost it, or you've fluffed it up. But anyway, what it did is it put it offline. It's immediately opened up the link dialog box, and I can go off and find it. I'm going to click on locate. Now it's gone to the folder where it thinks it was. And because I've got my exact name matches ticked, it's not showing me that clip because the clip isn't called Brighton 42 anymore, it's called something else. Let's untick that and then look for the beach clip. Oh, there it is. OK, links it up. You notice it's still called Brighton 42 on the timeline, but it's actually linked to a clip now called Beach. Let's do another one. Let's take this shot of our pier. Rename that one, come back into Premiere. Yep, it's offline again. Fair enough. Now instead of going straight away and relinking it, I'm going to cancel it so I can show you a different way of relinking clips that are missing. Nice new thing they added, and it's fairly simple. In the old days you used to have to find the clip in the bin and then relink it from here. Now you can also relink clips on the timeline, because a lot of the time I've got a whole bunch of clips in the bin. I don't really care if the ones that I'm not using aren't linked up. I only care about the ones on the timeline. Great, you can now link from the timeline. Come down here, right click on a clip and go link. It brings up the relink dialog box, click on locate, find that clip which was called West Pier. You notice the way that the icons appear and then disappear whilst it does a little bit of jiggery pokery in the background. That's what Premiere's media browser does. I sometimes like to stick this into text or list view so it doesn't do that and I can just see the words because I know it's called West Pier. I don't need to see a picture. Click on West Pier, bang, sorted out. You can also do that for multiple clips. So let's again go back to this footage and I'm just going to call this something else. So I've now renamed the folder with all those clips in, which means when I come back into Premiere they should be all offline, which they are. Obviously they're offline, it's brought the dialog box up. Imagine you'd opened up Premiere, you'd left a lot of clips offline, you've got a whole timeline's worth of clips there which need relinking. Again, you can do exactly the same as I did a minute ago, but this time I'm just going to select all of the clips, right click and say link media, point them to the right place. Let's just locate that Brighton HDV folder. I'm not entirely sure which clip I'm matching up. Oh, it does say along the top here, I'm trying to link up the beach one. So again, I could just click on that, or I could click on the exact name matches, which I do tend to leave on all the time. I've clicked on one, but because I clicked on one, it's now going to sort the rest out. It's just made life so much easier. It's so much quicker to link up clips. You'll notice over here in the bin, because I linked up just the clips I was using, I've actually got some clips in the bin here, which are offline. You can tell they're offline because the little icon on them is slightly different. If I was to put that into icon mode, you know, I've got icons for these clips. I don't have icons on these ones because they're offline. If you double click on it, it brings up information about the clip. It's just telling me stuff about the clip, the time code of the start, the time code of the end. I need to link that back up again. But that's what happens with offline clips. You double click on them, it brings up this dialog box. Pop back into list view, and what I also find jolly useful, another way of relinking clips, is that if I've got a folder of clips, or even if I've got a folder or a bin here and then some subfolders underneath it, and some of the clips in there are missing in all of those subfolders, I just click on the folder, right click and choose link media. It brings up all the clips which are missing in that folder and any subfolders underneath it. And then I can go off, find it, then let it do its magic to relink all the others which are missing. And then once it's done, bish bash bosh, you have suddenly got all those clips relinked. And again, it's great that you can just choose a folder and do that. It doesn't relink the ones that are already linked. It only links offline items. You can choose to make a particular clip offline. Go to that clip, right click and say make offline. And then once it does it, it brings up this dialog box. The options are leave the clips where they are on the hard drive or delete them. Obviously, if you delete them, they're no longer there. You can't relink to them in the future. If you don't delete them, if you leave them like that, they stay on the hard drive, but they're not in the project anymore. So you can always relink to them later on. If I do that, this clip is now offline, but I can still go back and say link media, find it, and relink to it. If I'd said make offline, delete clips, it'll actually pop up a warning dialog saying, do you really want to do this? This cannot be undone. So obviously it's warning you not to delete clips. Because especially in these days of card-based media, we don't tend to have tapes to go back to. Your only copy of the clip might be the one you're about to delete, so it warns you about it. But you can make individual clips offline, or I can select a folder and make all of the clips in that folder offline. If they're on the folder and then used in the project, then what happens is it makes them all offline in the project. So let me relink those again in exactly the same way that I did before. Another thing you can do, let's go to this clip here of the beach. I'm going to right click on the timeline and make that one offline. And I'm going to right click and then link media. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to link it to the wrong clip. So let me choose that one. And if you ever see this, let's just zoom in there so you can see it a bit better. What I've done is I've taken that beach clip and I've relinked it to a totally different clip. By the way, if you're looking at this and wondering why have I got all this jiggery pokery on the thumbnail at the start of this clip, actually that's how the clip starts. It's got a little bit of digital disturbance at the start. Ignore that completely. But anyway, yeah, I've gone and linked it up and I've linked it to the wrong clip and I've suddenly got that. Great big piece of black. What's happened is basically I've linked it up to a clip which is smaller than the original. So it still does it because I told it to, but after the media of this boat runs out, I've got nothing. And that's what this hatchy pattern means. So it does automatically tell me that I've fluffed it up and maybe I shouldn't have linked it to that one. So let me make it offline and then try to link it up again. Of course, now it thinks that should be linked to Brighton 37. Because I've told it that it should be linked up to the wrong thing, that's now what it thinks it should be linked to. So when I go to locate it, I've got to make sure I choose the right one. And the only reason that I happen to know that beach.mpeg is the right one to link it to is because I know it. Because now as far as Premiere is concerned, it should be linking to that. Oh, sorted it out. But that can happen if you link to the wrong things. Premiere will let you link to the wrong things. Generally, it'll actually let you link to even a different type of file. If I make that thing offline, and then let's go and link to media, and locate, and instead of using that HDV stuff, let me go to another thing with an AVI file in it. What's that clip? Well, it's a different clip of Brighton, all blue. Click on that. Yep, it's gone ahead and let me relink that HDV MPEG clip to an AVI file instead. Or even, being completely random here, a 4K clip of Edinburgh, which is a MOV file. It's actually let me link it up. You have to try and make sure you link to the right things. It won't automatically link to the wrong things. It matches up things based on various criteria, but if you manually tell it to, you can link it to completely the wrong clip. And the only way to solve it is to make it offline and then go and link to the right clip. Now, I mentioned there was a bunch of criterion. That's what this lot is down here. So the obvious thing is match up the file name, match up the file extension. This is what it'll do if it does it automatically. Now, I linked it to a completely different clip with a completely different extension, and I told it to do that manually, but if I tried to do it automatically, it wouldn't do it. It's now only going to link up to a clip which is called that with MOV afterwards. Now, if I had another clip which happened to have the same name and file name, it would link up to it. I could say also match up the start of the media and match up the tape name. I'm only going to have a tape name if I've captured it off tape and given it a tape name, but you can use that to make sure when it matches automatically, it chooses these as well. And there's also like clip IDs and descriptions. All these are the things which you're saying, yeah, use that to automatically match clips. The other one's pretty obvious here. This one is the one that does all the magic. If I link up to the first clip, it will relink to everything else if it can find it. If I untick that, it won't, and I'll have to do them one at a time. Never really had an occasion to untick that because it does such a good job. Align timecode, very rarely use that one. What I have used it for in the past is if I've got clips with timecode in, generally it's been stuff I've captured off of tape, but imagine I've captured a whole tape as an hour. On another occasion, I've also captured it just a small piece in the middle, so I've captured like 10 minutes to 11 minutes, and I've used that in the timeline, and then that's disappeared, and I've got another version of the clip which isn't exactly the same, but that bit's in it. Well, if I click align timecode, what it should do is you point it to the hour-long clip, and then it finds the right timecode in the middle. Without that, it just links it to the start, which would be the completely wrong part. So that one, quite useful if you've got timecode and you happen to have not the original media, but a different piece of media that's got the timecode in. Again, I tend to leave that ticked. Preserve interpret footage settings. Interpret footage is the way where you tell clips what the frame rate should be and the aspect ratio and so on. And yeah, tick that to keep them. I generally leave that one ticked. Use media browser to locate files. If I click on locate, it uses this, which is like a mini media browser. It's just like the media browser that Premiere's got. You know, you can stick your cursor across a clip and then you can scoot through it using the hover scrub, that sort of thing. It's got all the usual media browser stuff, so you can just click on this little funnel up here and trim it down to certain types of clip. You can see things as a file directory, or if you happen to be pointing at a folder. If I go to the train folder, if I click on AVCHD, it drills straight down and finds me the clips. If I click on file directory, then I can browse through and find files in the old-fashioned way. And obviously you've got to search as well. So that's all straightforward, and it's all very much like using a regular media browser. If I untick that and locate, I'm using the old-fashioned way of doing things. Still got a nice display exact name matches, which actually used to be there in Premiere for ages. And this is how I would relink things in the old days. If I use this to find clips, it still does all the automatic jiggery-pokery of linking them up. It's just if you prefer to use a file browser, then you can untick this one and it uses the file browser instead of media browser. File browser does have the advantage that if you go to a folder full of clips, like my HDV clips, it shows me the clips up here. I've got no thumbnails here because Windows doesn't show thumbnails of MPEG files, but it doesn't do that thing that the media browser occasionally does of looking at a folder and then doing a bit of jiggery-pokery in the background, and then the whole thing disappears and then it comes back, blah, blah, blah. That's about the only advantage I can think of to using the file browser over the media browser. I find that I just leave these at the defaults and they work really well, but that's what they're for. They're for helping you to automatically link stuff. In my case, yep, I've linked this up to completely the wrong clip. Let's use the file browser this time. Find that clip, Brighton HDV, and it was definitely the beach one. How do I know it's the beach one? Because I remember, despite all my wobbling on, that that's the one I was fiddling with. Up here, nothing's telling me that it's the beach one because the name on the timeline was different and the name that I last linked it to was different. I just have to know. But yeah, linking media I think is a great thing that they put a lot of effort into, and I think it worked really well. And it just made my life a lot easier when I'm moving projects around. Probably one of my favourite things they've changed about the way that the Creative Cloud works.